Hello everyone, I'm Tanvi Bambolkar. Welcome to Margaon Book Club. And I think most of us are known faces, yet this always feels new. And today we are going to discuss one of the classics of Konkani, if I may say, and that is Carmelin by Damodar Mauzo. And we are fortunate enough to have Bhai with us to give his insights, his journey, and his views about his book. Actually, no one needs an introduction. Anybody, I'm sure, all of us know Bhai so very well. We don't need a special introduction about Bhai. Yet, as a formality, I'll just say a few things about him. Bhai has been a writer, an activist, a storyteller, and he has written short stories as well as novels, and his books have been translated in many languages, like Carmelin itself, which received Sahitya Academy in the year 1983, has been translated into 12 languages. And he was nominated for Frank O'Connor International Award in 2015 for his book Teresa's Man and Other Stories. He's also the co-founder of Goa Art and Literary Festival, which started in 2010 and has been nurturing literary talents over the years. Bhai has been an inspiration, a mentor for so many of us, an active member of the Margaon Book Club as well. And I'm so thrilled and glad that we are discussing one of the books that I think I read in original at a very early age when I was just 15 or 16. And it had a huge impact on me as a woman, as a person. And fortunately, I did my TY project in translation, and one of my texts was Carmelin. And thanks to Book Club, I could read it again and with a newer perspective. So what we can do is, instead of, since we all know each other already, we can keep the introductions brief. And then with the introductions, we can start with your comments about the book. But before that, I would request Bhai to begin with his comments and what he wants to say to the book club today about Carmelin. Bhai, can you hear me?
I don't have much to say about it. Since the book is read by all, I'm more eager to listen to others. Sorry, I didn't put it on. What I mean to say is, I'm as eager as others to listen to others, because you have come with, already you have the books. You have read the book, and since I'm more eager to listen to you, I would rather speak less. And in case there are any questions, I will be happy to answer. What do I have to say in the beginning? I'm happy that the book has completed more than, the writing has been completed more than, it has completed about 41, 42 years. It was written in 78, 79. It was published in 81. It got the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983. So you can imagine how much time has lapsed in between. And now still it is running. So I'm eager to know from you what you think about it.
All right. So maybe we can start with Rahul. And then if Bhai wants to speak at the end and answer the questions, so let's go that way. Rahul, do you want to start?
Yeah. Just a point that the questions will come later, right? Now we only give our impression of the book. Yeah. So yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with all of you, and I'm so happy. Just yesterday we heard Bhai at the University of Calcutta. Some of us heard him there, and it was a fascinating, very engrossing session. So coming straight to Carmelin. I was happy to pick up a copy thanks to Leonard and Dog Ears. We got them from Sahitya Academy, and finally, I mean, I'm got to read the English version. the book completely transports you literally to village Goa to begin with. For people who are not so let us say not used to Goa or don't know much about Goa, it gives you a fantastic introduction to rural Goa and the customs in Catholic homes in village Goa. So I am I'm quite amazed, and that the way Bhai has been able to describe village Goa, where of course he spent all his life, and my distinct nuances of the Catholic community, their customs, their language, because there's so much of Portuguese that he's brought in. Also, because having studied Portuguese himself, he's brought in a lot of Portuguese words in the book, which is very interesting. And you get into, you really are transported to pre-liberation Goa, and you kind of walk the path with Carmelin, so to say, and then you really you start with Carmelin as a young girl, and you really walk the path with her through her school years, and then to Kuwait, which again has been described so well. You get the desert feel, so to say, in the book. Really, that's very fascinating. I know that Bhai's one of his daughters is in Saudi Arabia and all of that, but he's obviously traveled in those parts, and he's picked up those nuances. What I found, it's going to be a question I'm going to ask him later on, so I'll reserve that for later. But all in all, I felt that you not only got connected to village Goa, but you really got, he magically got you involved with these characters, simple characters from Goan villages, but at the same time, people who have been who are so involved in the in their daily lives, and those nuances have been brought on very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Very true, and that was so short yet so apt. And I think, as you said, Carmelin takes us to the time period it is set in, and from it also shows you the changes that occurred after liberation as well. And there are mentions of opinion poll, and so that this is not just fiction, but so it is so much is based on real life events. And I think I will throw more light on about whether it is. Savya, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm very happy we are discussing your book, because I think it's somewhat of a legend in Konkani literature that this book actually brings out a very Goan story, nuances a very Goan situation of a woman traveling for work to West Asia, and then the consequences of that work relationship. And I think to be able to do justice to a lot of things that she experiences, it's something of a rare thing in a writer, and I think Bhai has done it very well. So I really enjoyed the book. I read it a second time. In fact, my earlier copy is in Bombay, so I had to buy it all over again and read it. I really loved the way the entire personality of Carmelin was fleshed out. She's liberated. At the same time, she lives within a bubble in which society envelops her. And her life story is so interesting, because her work situation pits her against so many situations, which she kind of also distances herself from, and at the same time is part of it willy-nilly, whether she likes or not. So I really enjoyed the story. It's one of your books which I have enjoyed among others. I also liked These Are My Children very much. Can you hear me? Okay. So that's...
I can hear you all. Only thing, when
And,
Tanvi speaks, I find it difficult to listen because it's very खूप बारीक आवाज येता तन्वी तुगे मातशी पळय मगे.
Okay,
I can
okay.
hear you
I'll try
perfectly.
to increase the
Yes.
voice.
Yeah.
okay, so that is one thing. The second thing is Bai's literature also brings us in touch with regions of Goa that are lesser known about in English fiction. So that's the refreshing thing of translations which come from Konkani, that you actually get to see a hinterland Goa. You actually get to see stories of smaller folk. It's not the ethos of a Goan society post-colonialism, but it's the ethos of smaller folk in a colonial state, which colonialism has barely touched them. But they have lived their lives, they have kind of been part of a social milieu in which colonialism has been one of the things. But the main forces in their life has been the workforces, which kind of transports them from one region to another. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, very insightful, very true. And these are some of the things which every one of us has, taken from Carmeline as a takeaway. So now I would request Mr. Norbert Dice to express his impressions next. Yes, sir. I request you to unmute yourself, sir, please, and then continue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mauza Sahab, I would like to first say that I'm very happy to attend a session by you. I must admit, no, I was halfway through your book and I couldn't complete it. But I wanted to be here today to listen to what people had to say about your book. Because you as a writer has intrigued me from what I've heard. As I heard in my younger days, you're a Hindu writer writing about Catholic stories. So I was fascinated about this. I'm reading through the book and I find it a very fascinating piece of literature. Also, I like the fact that it deals with simple people and what they're going through and a period that starts pre-liberation. I'm looking forward to hearing more about you, Mauza Bab, what you have to say, your ideas on literature and life in general as it connects with the book. I'm also happy to be in such august company. Thank you.
Thank you, Norbert.
Sorry. Thank you. Am I audible enough now? Just show me a thumbs up. I just got a message from Ruda that okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. View, Norbert, sir. Next, we have with us Dr. Glenis Mendonca, who has actually done her PhD on Goan translations, that is the works which have been translated from Konkani to English, and I've seen Glenis really go deep into the process of translation. So I would like to request Glenis to start with her views. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tanvi. For me, Carmeline has been a very special text because it is one of the texts I've studied for my doctoral research, a Konkani book in English translation. And incidentally, I've read the Konkani text followed by the English text, and I've also made a little bit of comparison between the Konkani and the English. Now, for me, Carmeline is very special for many reasons, of course, from the academic point of view. And I've seen Carmeline more than a mere description of Goa. I have seen Carmeline as an exploration of a woman's sexuality. I have seen Carmeline as not just a character, but a text which is a wholesome text reflecting the socio-cultural, historical, as well as the entire anthropological aspects of Goa. It has several issues, and interestingly, it is written by a male which explores the sexuality of the female from a Goan context. In Carmelian, we have varied experiences, right from her sexuality to a change of location from Suravali, Kolba, then after that to Palye, after that to the Arab countries, that is in Kuwait, and her different experiences there, the different men in her life, and we think that she's exploited, but I've seen it the other way around, that she rules the roost. Agnel, Jose, Rosario, Nisar, in up Teresa's Man and other short stories by and I really enjoyed the way in which Goan life or these small characters from villages that you would not really what do you say, like you pass on the road in Margao, for example, and I often think of this, like I'm walking and I always think that what is this person's story, what is their background, where will they go from here, what are they buying, how is their house condition, things like that. So and I find that those characters are in your books, so especially in Teresa's Man. Coming to this book, you start off with again the same thing, the whole landscape, the characters, you're able to identify with everyone, even though I have lived in Margao my whole life, but the distance between villages and cities in Goa is not so much, so you meet all these people on a daily basis, you have come across these, so you are able to identify with certain things that are happening there. But a lot of things were thrown a lot of things were brought into light. For example, like how Savya mentioned that the colonial setup did not really affect the characters, and then they went on with their lives without it showing into their daily lives. So you're just looking at having a peek into their lives, and from the first chapter that it began, it started off in the like it's almost the 3/4 of the book, just the tail end remaining of the story, and then it went into and launched into the whole how her childhood was and everything. And of course, everything that she has gone through was giving you like how much strength would a person or a woman have to deal with all this. But she bore it with these certain things that she, like her maid, her stepmother later, she says that this is not your house and you can never come back, and she never goes back. Or she says this is your husband's house and now that's where you have to always be, and that's what she keeps in mind. And her whole perspective of she's guilty but she's not guilty, she wants her daughter to succeed, and she therefore goes through all these motions of doing whatever she can to bear everything for herself. And in the end, that slap, it's just what a great, way to end that story. Like there could not have been any other way to end the story, where her years and years of all that stress and hard work and just bearing it all, kind of it just comes collapsing down, where she doesn't know how to deal with this, because it seems like, I don't know if I'm wrong, but it seems like Isabel has kind of given her the impression, because she's been staying with her, that your mother has gone there and she's earned so much money, and she's heard her neighbors now talking about what money can do. So she thinks that now, because this seems to be a great path to pick up and become a successful person. That is one thing. The second thing that really like spoke to me through the book was what poverty can do to a person, and what heights it can make them just take up a resolve. So there was a sentence by that you wrote, saying that the poor have no rules, or they don't have any everything, all the good things are for the rich, who are able to what can you say, they are able to make their rules, or they are able to have choices basically in life, and the poor basically have to just deal with whatever to survive. So the whole story, from a woman's perspective, and from a person who is stuck in poverty and being a woman, so these two things really stood out, and I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I'm going to pick up all the other books henceforth. Is what I've decided. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rujita. Some of the very important points, I think, which all of us have also noticed, especially about poverty and what it leads to, and the description, the realistic description that Bhai has done has always, made a great impression on the reader's minds. Next, I would request Ma'am Preeti Arauzo, if you could take up the discussion ahead. Please unmute yourself, ma'am, and then start.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate Bhai for his wonderful, the book was really, really well written. It sort of transports us to the Goan, a typical Goan village. And I have lots of memories of that from my childhood, although I didn't grow up here. And it was really nice to see the way the life in a Goan village pre-liberation was, and how this girl, she struggles, an orphan girl, how much of suffering one person could have. She struggles, she suffers, but finally she succeeds. And it's actually quite a sad thing to see the way the poverty has really affected. And I mean, it was really too much in her life, yet she overcame that and suffered. And towards the end, it looked like she was enjoying the sexual life that she was having in Kuwait. So it was not that she was only unhappy. I think at that stage of her life, some sort of happiness she did get, because there was a comparison with the three types of sexual relationships that she had had. The first one was like a fling with a young boy. Then her husband actually used her. And this man was actually, although he used her, he was kind to her. And she was only doing it for money. But finally, the way Bhai writes, that she was enjoying the affairs that she had with him. But what really was like the climax was, she worked and she struggled and she bore up so much of suffering just to make her daughter happy. And at the end, it was like a big bang, like the whole thing came crumbling down. And it was a nice ending, but it was difficult to digest suddenly, you know, that girl wanted to do exactly what she didn't want her to do. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, very true. I think Carmelin is a book from which some of the scenes just stay in your mind, like especially the end, the slap. I think I could never forget it. And it's the open ending that tells you whether the circle is going to continue of the poverty and, you know, sexual exploitation, or, you know, is the slap somewhere signifies that this is going to end somewhere. So I like the way Bhai has kept it open and up to the readers to interpret the slap as we want. Anyway, next I would like to request Percy Cardozo to express her views about the book. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Good evening to all of you. So most of what I was kind of thinking has already been said. All the same, I would, you know, kind of summarize what I went through. It is a pleasure to be in the session, especially with Sir Mauzo sitting in here. And I just before reading this book, Carmelin, a few months before reading this, I had read The Ink of Dissent and Teresa's the short stories, and I had always wanted to read Carmelin, but never got time, basically, you know, to pick up books. And it's only when I joined this book club that I'm kind of forced to read books. Otherwise, I would put them, I would buy them and keep them aside and say, I'll read it, and I'll read it, you know. And this is such a good opportunity, you know, to be forced into reading. And I regret not reading the Konkani version, because I think the flavor of the whole book will come out through the Konkani version, and I want to go and pick it up and, you know, read that. So basically, reading Carmelin, you know, made me go back to the 80s, walking through my neighbors' homes. Like I could, you know, imagine my neighbor Isabel and Mila Green and, you know, Philomene, all of that, all rolled into Carmelin. And it was such a fantastic, you know, experience reading the book. So basically, I'm just reading from some notes that I had made, you know. So as Tanvi has said, there are certain scenes that, you know, stay with you. And basically the scene that just brought tears to my eyes was when Carmelin's brother died, and how his mom, how her mom just kind of, you know, sent just that when that little boy was ill. Mom didn't realize, she just slapped him and just asked Carmelin to take him and go out. So that is something that stuck, is just kind of very strong emotional impact on me personally. And also the little boy that Carmelin lost. So I just couldn't imagine how she could have, managed to keep her emotions under control and just ignore that little, boy. So these are two scenes that just stuck in my head. Basically, to me, Carmelin seems like, a very good depiction of the commonest folks of Goa. Basically, struggles of women in Goa and their, exploitation, which is I would hear in the 80s, like people going to Kuwait, and these are stories that I have kind of heard, but I thought, okay, they may not have been true stories or whatever, but having it in this book is like, oh yeah, people were saying this at that time of that lady, of this auntie, of that auntie. So it just reminded me of the most common people that, it seemed like the Carmelin is my neighbor, and I felt I knew Carmelin at some point, And then it also brought back, like, smells of, our aunties returning from Kuwait with big bags of soaps and all those, like spices and chocolates and perfume bottles. So that I was actually hallucinating, basically smelling all of that, while reading when Carmelin returned. Also, it talks of a story of, exploitation, at the same time, determination to bounce back, to thrive. And also, basically, another thing that struck me was, there was, something that at some, when I was in one of, a meeting with some of these academic people, and there was this young, elderly man who had said, Percy, morality is basically for the middle people who are in the middle, sections of society. The rich don't need it, and the poor can't afford it. And basically, that's something that was glaring there. That Carmelin possibly had to, go with a very strong determination, and she was kind of a, what Sir has kind of tried to depict is a woman from a lower middle class background. Possibly she had a lot of moral values which she was loaded with, but she just had to just let go of all of that and for the sake of just to survive. And that's something that's beautifully written down. And yeah, that's all I can say. Thank you, sir, for giving us such a lovely book.
Thank you, Percy. Very well put up. Now I would like to request Ma'am Sushila, if you would like to take the discussion ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Tanvi. What I like about the book is that, when an author writes about his own society, people around him, not much Hindu or Catholic, but Goan, is something which is the first-hand account of an author. It's like a picture portrait in words, which keeps you thinking about the picture as you are reading the words. So this is something which is very striking in the book, where you are imagining as you are reading. And this Goan society is so much, lower middle class, something which I have seen in my childhood, like Percy said. So the Catholics, the village Catholics in Goa, they of course, the rural section, they are one with this story. And I remember also in my childhood, a lot of women going abroad, coming back, looking after their families, educating their children. But there were these kind of background whispering stories about their sexuality and what they did there. And as a person who, who wouldn't go by stories, I used to always wonder whether these are half truths or whether they are real truths, or whether, you know, they are just stories made up about people going to earn a living and then giving them a title of kind of prostitutes and things like that. So how far of that, I would like to ask Bai, what were the sources of his writings? Was it hearsay? Was it imagination? Was it fact? Was it? I know it's fiction, but what were the sources that made you write about Carmeline? And also, I think when the protagonist is a woman, I at least as a woman, kind of relate to it, because I like reading stories where women are protagonists. So I like reading Sidney Sheldon because his women are always protagonists, and any author for that matter, because it kinds of relates to me as a woman. And yeah, this is all I'd like to say. But I want to ask Bai, what was the genesis of this book? What made him write it? And what were the sources behind it? And of course, it's well written. Of course, it stands the test of time. But it was set in a particular locale, in a particular time frame, which we all grew up with these stories. It required a Bai to write them down in the form of a book. But we had all heard about these stories all our life. So it's really well written, and it deserves whatever awards it got. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. I think everyone has been wondering about the sources of the book. Bhai, would you like to answer it now, or should we have the questions at the end, as you wish? You can
I
answer
would
it
prefer
now.
to. I think I should talk less and listen to you more. I would prefer rather to speak at the end, if you don't mind. If you have any specific questions that you need me to answer, I'll be happy to.
Okay,
Is that
that's
okay?
great. So now, next I request, yeah, bye, fine. Yeah, so we'll take, thank you for that question, ma'am Sushila. We'll take that question at the end of, once everyone is done with speaking and expressing their views about the book. Next, I request Mayura to talk about the book, what she felt after reading it. Mayura?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, so your voice is breaking. I enjoyed the book thoroughly, and everyone has spoken almost everything about it. So, I would have loved to read this book in Konkani, but my Konkani is not so good. But still, I enjoyed. It's like, when I was reading, it's like a movie unfolding in front of you. It is that realistic, I feel, his writing. Enjoyed it thoroughly and got a glimpse of Goan life, which I've never seen otherwise. And I would like the author to talk about the book. I'm waiting for that to happen. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Shaila Mauzo with us. I don't know whether she would like to say a
I
few
don't think
things.
so. She's just attending out of curiosity what you are saying about her partner.
because what has really fascinated me, by as Glenys said, that being a man writing about and I think amongst us, like as academicians and as teachers, we've discussed this a lot, that being a man, how someone writes so much about women's body and women's sexuality, and that is like really fascinated me. So that would be my question. And anyway, we also have Vishal Kirtani. Would he like to say something as well, or should we start with the questions?
like that.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's been a great privilege to be son-in-law. It's been like in the circles, it's good to know that we are respected more because being his son-in-law. So, and just like to say, like he's done many books, and although Carmelin is a cynical, all the other books are equally good, and everybody should read all the other books. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. And I hope all of them get translated soon so that more readers can read them. So now, without much ado, let us start with the questions. Before that, since Glenys was interrupted because of the video stoppage, Glenys, would you like to continue and then maybe we can start with the questions?
I think I could
Were you
not
stopped?
listen to Glenys because of the reach in between.
Hello. So let me continue from where I stopped. I think Carmelin is giving us very interesting ideas. Okay, of course, it is one of Bai's first novels. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which was and it has been translated into several Indian languages, and it has evoked interest not just in India but also abroad. Not just is it a Sahitya Academy awarded novel, but it is also a novel, as I rightly pointed out, written by a Goan male writer about female sexuality. Now, I'd like to touch upon very interesting points which this particular novel, which I feel opens scope for a very feminist reading. Why do I say feminist reading? Because it is about a woman. Okay, it is dealing with sensitive issues like patriarchy, hegemonic relations. Okay, a woman, her sexuality is explored. You know, she's a victim of circumstances as well as patriarchy. Very beautifully an apt metaphor is used when the author explains a predicament. When a sapling is uprooted from one spot and transplanted elsewhere, it tends to wilt for some time before it sets new roots. So Carmelin is beginning a fresh life with a new family. She's an orphan initially, then she finds her new pie, João Philippe, and his wife, who are her aunt and uncle, and her cousin, with whom she has her first relationship. Okay, so her sexuality begins at a very exploration of her sexuality. Begins with her first encounter with Agnel. Okay, and then she's married off when Agnel is, you know, this aspect of Agnel after having this you know, her sexual experiences with Carmelin, because he has to get a good dowry, he is married off by the parents to a, you know, Africa returned girl. She looks ugly, but at the same time it's the dowry that matters. So there's an issue of dowry again. Dowry is a very patriarchal tradition. So dowry again, and the boy given for the sake of dowry. And Carmelin, because of her circumstances, her subaltern status, has to get married to a poor man, a drunkard like Jose. Then again, she is exploited within her marriage. There is an exploration of marital rape. So very, very sensitive issue which Bai is dealing with in this text. Marital rape. And after that, we have Rosario who is exploiting her. Rosario's sexual experiences. So it starts with Agnel, then we go to Jose, then we go to Rosario. After that, when she is totally, you know, hand to mouth, she takes a bold decision of leaving everything, especially when Isabel's husband is, you know, limp and cannot work, and he's as good as an invalid. She takes a bold decision as a woman in those times to go to Kuwait, despite all odds. And then again, her experiences with Nisar. I'd like to point out her experiences with Nisar and what Manohar Rao Sardesai has to say in his review on the novel. Manohar Rao Sardesai says that Carmelian becomes a Christ-like figure. He says she becomes a Christ-like figure because she sacrifices herself on the cross of gold. Now, this is the gold which Kuwait is giving her, and she resurrects through Belinda. It's a very beautiful way he's putting it in the review, which was published in one of the journals in the 80s. So Carmeline's, experience with Nisar again, how she is treated by Nisar, and every time he has an experience with her, he throws the dinars, the KDs on her, kind of thing. So there's a very, 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 it actually brought goosebumps. There's an episode wherein he forces upon her and violates her when she is menstruating. So that part was very, very, I was shuddering when I read that part. So that again is very touching. And then there is an experience with the inspector. So in all these 5 men, okay, Agnel, Juzair, Rosario, Nisar, and the inspector, and the 5 experiences, sexual experiences, is Carmeline a victim? Question mark. Or she redeems herself and stands out and redeems herself through these experiences by voicing out her voicelessness, is what I'm trying to see. Because when we compare her with a character like Nuria, who is again a victim of the Arab cultural circumstances. Nuria is the wife of Nisar, and how, we can actually compare her and we can actually see her. So Carmeline is giving us a brilliant exploration of a woman's sexuality from a male author's point of view. That is very, very important, because it's very difficult for a male author to get behind the skin of a woman and give us his experiences. And I stop here. Bye. You can
Thank you, Gladys. That was very insightful, and as you said, some of the descriptions are really touching, and they're so realistic that that this is really happening, and that's why I think it touches you. It's not something out of imagination. Anyway, so let us start with the questions. So I think Ma'am Sushila had a question about the sources. What were the sources? And I think that's the best question to start with by Kanchan Susle. And where did you get the story? What was the seed of the story? By
first of all, you should know that I am a shopkeeper by profession. I cannot become a professional writer. I can't claim to be a professional writer. Writer comes by the way, but then I am a shopkeeper until some years back when I closed the shop and decided to devote my time to writing and reading. Now at this shop, all the characters that I have penned, most of them, I met them across the counter. And this is a village shop, remember. It's not a superstore. It's a shop that meets all the needs of the villagers. So where people have to come to the shop. And people who come to shop, I always like to single out some people to talk to them in detail. So I'll just, I am in a habit of talking too much about my writing. Sometimes please stop me if I do. I'll come to the point. The genesis of the story lies in my village, where I see the people talking about Kuwaitkar or Kuwait Khan, and particularly Kuwait Khan. In 1970s or before 70s, when Goans had returned from Africa, East Africa, after the liberation of Goa and after the independence attained by the East African countries, they preferred to come down to Goa. Or some people prefer to go to other countries. So this you should keep in mind. So the money that was coming from East Africa, it stopped. I'm talking about the Goan economy. But then people like Carmeline, when they suffered at the hands of the hegemony of the male protagonist, or because of Tenancy Act that was introduced in Goa, so she decides to go to Gulf. But then so such Kuwait Khans are umpteen in number in villages like Goa, like my village, Madurda. There was a girl, young adolescent girl, maybe she was studying that time 8th standard or 9th standard, I don't remember now, but a young girl of about 14, 15 years old. And unlike most of the village girls, she was riding a BSA bicycle, a new one. She should always come well dressed. Obviously, she was not hailing from a rich family or Bhatkar family, yet she had enough money to spend. And then she came to my shop with other girls, her friends. She would buy a slab of Cadbury's, break it and give to others. Or when she wanted to have a soft drink, Coke, for example, then she would have not only for herself, but she would ask others also, give to them also. So I was wondering how this girl has so much pocket money. When I went to school, I never get more than 4 annas that time. But I'm talking about this girl, and then people would say, oh, that is the Kuwait Khan chidu. So when they said Kuwait Khan, there was a stigma attached to it, which created interest in me to know more about the Kuwait Khan. Why do the people who talk to them very nicely, but when at their back they will call her Kuwait Khan? So I tried to go into the details from others. Meanwhile, this girl who used to come to my shop regularly, for a month or so she did not turn up. But after the month, when she came back, I asked her, Ari, put this I So she said, my illi Kuwait son, they couldn't power in her. So if mother comes from Kuwait, she has no time to go about. So she was spending most of her time with her mother. And then when she said, then I asked her, and she gave me details, the frocks and the scent that mother brought. But then when I asked her, so so I simply asked her, but the answer she gave me, brought ideas, seeds for my story. So she said, I asked my mother, and mother was angry, she said, no, you will never go to Kuwait. So she did not know. She was an adolescent girl, innocent girl, but she just simply told me all this, and then I tried to think over it. So I got a seed for my story, not for novel. I never thought of writing a novel. By the way, you will know I'm basically a short fiction writer. I never claim myself a novelist. And if you have gone through Carmeline without considering that it is a novel, because it is the ending, as somebody said, it is not an end of a novel. It's the ending comes as an end of story. I hope you all really agree with me. So when I tried to write about this story, then I had another story in my mind. It was nothing to do with Kuwait as such, but wherein a woman is working for some firm where she is sexually being exploited, and as she is involved in a sexual act and she gets a call to inform her that her husband has died, you can imagine the situation. So I had decided to write a story on this situation. So the both stories, when I started to write one, I realized I both have something in common. So I decided to stop And then I went on interviewing people who have returned from, Kuwait, or who were working in houses like as IAS. So I went on, I interviewed about 50 people and took down notes. And then there was icing on the top. That was icing on the cake was from a woman of about in late 40s. And this woman was, I would say, very sensitive, very, let me find the right word. But then this woman told me, you want to know about the women's plight? You want to know about the IAS? Let me tell you, but keep it to yourself. And she gave me an appointment. Come at 5 o'clock to my house. I went there, but there were a crowd around. So she said, let's go to the sea, because she belonged to that community, fisherman community. She took me to the sea, and we sat on the sands, and she went on narrating to me many things which have already appeared in my. I'll start with my novel because I had enough material to write down, and I'm happy that people liked the novel. I was more happy with the people one day I was taking the siesta when Dr. U.R. Ananthamurthy called me at around 3 o'clock, and I was very irritated because as a shopkeeper I needed that siesta in the afternoon from 2:30 to 3:30. So I was very irritated. I came to the phone, and that time it was a landline. So he told me, he was calling from Bangalore. Damodar, I'm not yet finished the novel, but I am so much impressed. I must talk to you and congratulate you. That was something I never expected. Similarly, when Amitav Ghosh was in Goa and addressing a public, and when we had not even met, that time he mentioned that reading Carnelian was a discovery, he said. So, I mean, when these comments came, I felt something nice. But then, actually, I tell you, I started writing as short story, ended up with a novel. Whether it is novel, whether I call it novel or not, it's up to you. But I was happy with it. And I'll just finish up with one comment. After the novel, when I passed on the novel to the publisher, Sumanta Kerekar of Zag Publication, he read it and he called me and he said, "Bhai, it is superb, but the only thing you do is, this is not an end of a novel. This looks like an end of a story. So please add more pages or more matter to it." I said, "I'm sorry, because Carnelian has took my hand and brought me up to here. So, and she has left here. So I cannot add anything, it will be artificial." So that is how Carnelian was born. I'm sorry I spoke a little longer.
That's very inspiring, Bhai. Thank you so much for sharing it once again. There were a few questions which fortunately I copy pasted in my chat box. So first, Rahul's question, I'll just take it. He asks, Bhai, how do you write your stories? Do you use the computer or do you prefer to write in longhand on paper like somebody like Ruskin Bond?
I'm very much comfortable writing by hand. Why, I'll tell you. Writing on computer, I write all the English narratives or English articles on computer directly. But when it comes to Konkani or when it comes to creative writing, I write by hand. Because I think it is because my thinking process and my writing, they become compatible. So as I write, I conceive of the ideas. The next para should come like this, next character should appear here. So I never think in advance, but as I start, it progresses. So that is my way of writing. So my writing, handwriting, writing by hand, and my thinking process, they work together. That is why I prefer to write in hand. Anything?
Yeah.
I'll only add here.
So
After I write and I'm finished through, Shaila, my wife, she sits on the computer and transfers it on the com. That is how these days we work together, hand in glove. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, can I take the next question, Bhai? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Rujuta had a question. She asked, was Carmelin a difficult character to write about? And her second question is, which other character other than Carmelin is close to your heart or difficult to write?
Thank you, Rujuta. But then one thing,
it difficult to write?
I don't think it was difficult. I don't know. You know, when I'm inspired, now it is difficult. If you ask me to write anything, even a short story or an article, when I'm not inspired, then I can't write. But when I get the inspiration, I have to write. It is a must. Then that is why one of my collections is called as Jagrana. Because most of the stories, because I'm a shopkeeper, I didn't have enough time to write earlier. Then my wife gave me time by attending to the shop. But then earlier, I used to write at nights. So starting after everybody has gone to sleep, my children, my wife, then I would sit at about 10:30, 11 o'clock and finish the story at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and retire to bed. So that was my habit. So what was the question? Sorry.
The other question was, any other character is close to your heart other than Carmelin, or was it difficult to write any other character other than Carmelin?
Let me tell. Yeah, of course, I'm going to answer more or less the questions that I have heard. One thing, when I write about Christians or Catholics, I don't look at them as Catholics. They are other beings, other human beings, just like us. So for me, they are not something different out of the world or out of my circles, nothing of that sort. They are my people. So I write about my people. Similarly, when I write about women, I never write as a male. I become one with her. She is my creation. I am there. Carmelin is me. So I have traveled with her all the while, whether she was in Goa, whether she was in Pali, or she was in Kuwait. I was all the while with her, not as a male. Probably that is the reason why you don't find them erotic as such. You know, there are sexual acts also described which come naturally. I would like to quote Bakibab Burkar, the famous Konkani poet Burkar, who said, he wrote me a letter and said, you have exercised such a restraint, very difficult for a writer. And he said, when he described, he particularly quoted one sentence. He said, Faskachi, Kari, Petli, and Parvali. That was the description how her husband, Peter, comes to her, Jose, comes to her, and he could not perform well. So it was like Faskachi, Kari, Petli, and Parvali. So Bakibab Burkar was very impressed by that. It came automatically. I did not bring it in, or I did not use it. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much about me, I think, but then since the topic has come, I never rewrite. Even Carmelin, I have not rewritten. Only one page I had to rewrite because there was a factual mistake. When I finished writing, thereafter I realized, somebody brought to my notice, not the reader, somebody else, while talking, brought to my notice that in Kuwait, no letters are taken to your home, or no telegrams are delivered at your home. So then I had to change, because earlier I had written that as she was involved in the sexual act with her boss, Carmelin receives a telegram. So I changed it, and then I realized there are other ways to justify it. So I used the other way. Somebody from the post office or telegraph office calls the boss because he is related to him, calls the boss to tell that Dujay has died. So this was one page that I had changed. Otherwise, I don't like to, because I think the first writing is always authentic. Other things, I feel I'm adding to the text or taking out something which was necessary probably, because when I write, I'm an artist as a writer. So I don't allow anybody also to change it. Just like the publisher, when he requested me to add to the end, which I refused to, because I don't like to. Yeah. Anything else? Should I
yes,
answer?
I'll just take the next question. It was by Norbert Dias. He said,
Yeah.
I sometimes felt that some of the lines got lost in translation and the English translation did not convey what you wanted to say. How much do you feel the translated version adheres to the original? How much do you think the translation
in fact,
adheres to the original?
this is true of all the translated books. You never get 100% in translation. So I would say we should consider, even today, I know so many Goans. It's unfortunate that I'm discussing to Goan people, Goan readers. The book is book in translation. I should have been discussing the book in Konkani, the Carmelian, the original book. This is the book original. Now it is out of print, not available anymore, and this is also a dilapidated condition. But I would have been happier to discuss the original book, because it is, I feel, it does more justice to the art of writing and to Carnelian. But Vidya Pai, who lives in Kolkata, who is from Mangalore, was not very much familiar with the Goan ethos or Goan way of life. Yet she took it upon herself as a challenge, and hats off to her. She has done enough justice to translation. I am happy with the translation, but as Norbert has rightly said, so much is left out, because the Konkani, when I write in Konkani, the nuances of Konkani add to the flavor, which doesn't happen in English. That's all. By the way, I'm not sure whether you are aware of it. The Indian Novels Collective is an initiative taken by some leading publishing house and some leading writers. And they have chosen some classics from India. They have targeted to translate 100 classics from Indian literatures into English. So it will be retranslated. I didn't want it retranslated, but then they themselves, Jerry Pinto always was after me, why this should be retranslated, why this should be translated again, let me do it or let somebody do it. So I was not keen on it, but then India Novel Collective, they have picked up Carmelian as a classic and already assigned the translation to somebody, some other writer. So I am happy about it. Now, but I was rather apprehensive about your first point. You said a Hindu male writer writing about Catholics. I don't think it is strange. When you identify with your Catholic brethren, I think it is not difficult to enter their skin. But there are many people who believe it. So always this question is asked to me. And when I was interviewed by Delhi Doordarshan once, I was very happy that the anchor called me, you are an honorary Catholic. She gave me this term. So I took it as a compliment. By reading my books, she felt that I was honorary Catholic. But I don't think I make an effort. It depends on when I write a short story. If the short story requires some characters, say Sita or Lila, then I would write about them. But when the character, when the content demands a Carmeline or Teresine or Coisao, then definitely they will enter. And not as Catholic women, as Goan women, as a human being. So that is why that is how I look at it, and probably that is why there is no, protagonism or whatever you call it. You will not find it is written by other than Catholic or other than insider. I would like to quote Alito Siqueira. Probably every one of you know him or heard about him. He was very outspoken, and he once wrote in some article that Mao Zedong writes so authentically about Catholic women. Definitely Mao Zedong had some affair with Catholic women. So that was his interpretation. I take it as a compliment again, whether I heard or no. It's up to you to decide. But then that is how I look at the characters. Again, I say I'm basically a short fiction writer. I have come out with two more collections have gone for printing. One is almost, one has been published already last month, and another is on its way. But I am also happy, though I claim myself not a novelist, yet recently during the pandemic, during the lockdown, I finished another novel, and I hope it will be an offbeat novel. But I feel sorry sometimes that most of my co-writers who do not read Konkani, I feel sorry not for them, I feel sorry for myself that I cannot reach out to them. I'm happy that Glenys has read my stories, my books, my novels in the original, and that is why I consider her reaction as authentic. Now, let me tell you, most of the speakers have spoken all good things about Carmelian. I would have been happier if you had something to critique about, something to disagree about, then I would have been happier. Yeah. So, is that all right?
Yes, Bhai.
Yeah.
Some of the wonderful things that you've told, especially about getting selected as classics under that project, and also about your new novel. I hope we can read it soon and have another session in book club. So we have some more questions. So next question was by Savia, and she said Carmelin is very machistic in the way she allows Nisar not only to use her sexually but abuses her mentally and psychologically. As a Goan and a Hindu, you address the sexuality of Catholic women. Please comment. I think you just spoke about it, but if
I just
you
spoke
would like
about
to
it.
again,
I don't distinguish between Hindu women and Catholic women. All women are women first. So I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think I should. I should add to it. The women are women. Yeah, their sensuality of a woman does not differ from religion to religion. It's a woman. A woman is a woman, and woman's sensuality is woman's sensuality. Okay.
thank you, Bhai. Glenys has a question, and Glenys, would you like to ask it? Because
Yeah, I have actually two questions. One is continuing from what Mr. Norbert Dias had said, and having read in both Konkani and in English, I can for sure say that considering Vidya Pai's background, with due respect to her, the translator, she's a Mangalorean Konkani writer, Konkani speaker. She understands the Mangalorean Konkani context much better than the Goan context. So especially with regards to the poetic references as well as idiomatic expressions, I feel there is a lack of justice done there. I'll give you an example from the source text, Carmelian page 8, Panveli nimtan maskak udak ashi manni asa is translated as, there's a saying that the drumstick tree thrives on water that is poured about its roots to nourish the beetle leaf creeper entwining about its trunk. Now, beetle leaf creeper also sandarbhuts na source text. So this is just an example. So she has misunderstood the context, and if I was to translate it, I would translate it. There's a popular saying that the drumstick tree thrives on the water meant for the creeper entwining it. ते तिने आपले ओन घाला आणि दुसरे म्हळ्यार दिस इज एडिशन्स. ओके, देर इज वॉट आय वुड कॉल एज अत्यानुवाद म्हणजे ओव्हर ट्रान्सलेशन. आणि थोडे तिने ग्लॉस ओव्हर केला, स्पेशली वेन देर आर सेक्शुअल रेफरन्सेस. आणि तुम्ही बरे त्याचे उदाहरणा दिल्या, यु नो द मेटाफर्स यू हॅव यूज, शी हॅज ग्लॉस्ड ओव्हर इट अँड शी हॅज गिव्हन इट अ व्हेरी गुड polished finesse, assuming that we will get totally, you know, scandalized by those metaphors. So she has glossed over the metaphors very beautifully, thinking that we, you know, we the English readers may get scandalized, making it look like a little bit of soft porn. In Konkani, it sounds so metaphorically insightful and, you know, intellectually teasing, because those metaphors are very sexual in nature. You know, especially comparing the virility of say Nisar to the frigidity of the husband, especially this intercourse experiences. You know, where metaphors are used, those metaphors are glossed over in the translation, is what I feel. So these are small instances where the translation is concerned. That is one observation. The second observation, which Bhai was saying, that give me some, you know, something wherein which are not so positive. What I would feel, Bhai, is when I see this novel written by a male author. Okay, I'm not looking at Bhai as Bhai, but I'm looking at a male author about a woman's sexuality, wherein you are not just getting inside a Catholic woman's mind, but you are getting behind the sexual skin of a woman. So how patriarchal is the whole act? Let us compare this novel with a novel like Bogdand, wherein a woman writer is writing about a man who is going to the Gulf countries and his sexual experiences, wherein she is being very defiant. Hema Naik is being very defiant in that novel, Bogdand. Okay, again it is sexual, but a woman writing about a male experiences. And here you are a male writer writing about getting into the sexual skin of a woman. I'm not looking at her religious background and affiliation at all. I'm looking at how patriarchal can this very act can be. Can you get into the skin of a married woman who is a victim of a circumstances? She's not gone to Kuwait for fun. She's gone because of her penury, because of a hand-to-mouth existence. And can you get behind it and can you compare that my husband's experience was X and the Arab experience was thrills and frills of fancy? Isn't this whole experience of narrating by getting into the sexual skin of a woman writer patriarchal, quote unquote, in its very say? Respond. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Glenys. I'll have to think over it and from that point of view, because I don't look at any character or any act from male point of view. As it comes, I write. Now, I recollected something. After I finished the novel, the publisher sent me the copy when it was published. And then one day, Mr. Ravindra Kehekar, you know him, so he asked me, do you find anything change? I said no. So he felt happy. Then again he gave me one particular page and asked me to read it and tell me if there is anything change. It's about Jose, Carmeline's husband, coming to her at night for sexual act, but then cannot perform, something of that sort. And he said, I read it and I found because I was reading objectively now. I said, okay, I don't see anything, any change. Then he said, I have removed one sentence. And then I realized there was a sentence, just 4 words, To, Chodlo, Devlo. You know, and I realized, I said, I have not written it. It has come there of its own. I think removing it was an injustice to the narrative. So sometimes the perspective of the publisher, you can call it male, or sometimes they are little apprehensive about going overboard as you discuss sexual act. Sometimes this happens. But I'll certainly, Glenys, thank you for bringing to my notice. I don't know whether I should worry about it or just leave it to you, because critiquing is the work of the critics, and writers should of course, bear it in mind. But then, yes, it's a good point. Thank you.
If I may add, Bhai and Glenis, with your permission, very good point expressed, and I think this was one of the points that was repeated a lot of times when it comes to Carmelin. But I would like to give example of our Goan folklore here. If we go to see most of our folk theatre forms, there are no females who perform, but there are a lot of female characters, and the plight of women is expressed by the males who perform as females. They act as females and express the plight of women. So why not? I don't find the act of a man expressing about women's sexuality patriarchal at all. Rather, I think it's quite liberating. The time when I don't know whether Bogdan came before, it definitely came after Carmelin. So I don't know whether any of the female writers expressed female sexuality as boldly and as realistically as Bai before that. So before Carmelin, I mean. So as a woman, I felt that it was a bold step and it was a liberating act rather. So whether a man did it or a woman did it didn't matter to me personally. Probably, we may differ here, but that's what I felt. Yeah. Anyway, do we have any more questions, or should we wrap up this session? Yes. Yes, Savia. Please go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
Going by my earlier question, Goa is very polarized in terms of its religious communities. And post-colonialism, Hindi cinema has always, has kind of given an image to the Catholic woman, you see. So, Bai as a writer, I just love the novel, so please don't misunderstand me.
Yeah, please.
Writing about the sexuality of a Catholic woman, does it also entrap the idea that is already propagated by Hindi cinema of the Catholic women being a loose character, having multiple relationships, as having a free and uncontrolled sexuality? So it's an idea that I would like you to address. But I also respect what you have said earlier, that you write as a human being, you write as a writer, and these categories do not come into your arena. But these categories outside of you are real, you see? So it's interesting to get your insight as a writer.
Should I answer? Hello.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you. The Hindi cinema is sometimes deliberately, sometimes they have the notions. They will, project the Goan people, which is very, very objectionable. And we have been, along with Savia, I also have been voicing my concern and my objection to this depiction. But I have written so many stories about where women are subjected to sexual abuses. Now, for example, recently I have written about a woman from the masses who wants sexual act with a person because he is white skinned. You get it? So I could boldly write it. Why? Why not? Because as I said, sensuality is not restricted or not any property of any particular religion. Here in this story, Kudla Balakrishna is the husband is Vasudev. The name is mythical of Lord Krishna's father. So and the wife is Devaki, again real mother of Krishna. So here this woman is tempted by the man who has white skin, and then she repents, and then when the child is born, she is in dilemma whether, and the husband is keen on keeping the name as Krishna, Krishna or something, you know, and she says, no, not this time, maybe next time. So what does this mean? This is the sensuality of a woman. And I never thought that some Hindus would object to it, but to Carmelian people have objected. By the way, the Catholics have objected, for Catholic writers have objected to it, so much so that when Carmelian was being serialized in Navangoi, Delhi, Roman script Delhi, then there was hue and cry and this forced the publishers to stop it. But I admire Father Freddy DeCosta, who was bold enough. He said, what is there? Why should you object? And he published entire Carmelian serialized in Goitabad. So I never had regrets that somebody has objected. But I was very proud of Father Freddy, who looked at it objectively. So I have this, you know, as I always say, the good people and bad people exist in all communities across the regions, everywhere. So we should look at them objectively. But I thank you for this question. Yes, probably some other writers would not indulge in depicting or creating a character, Hindu character with bad values. I don't know. But I don't look at it as Hindu or Catholic. I have never looked at it. Only when I choose a story, if the story demands the Catholic lifestyle, then the characters will enter accordingly. I recently written a story, Bizundo. It's about the theatrist. So I can't use a Hindu name there. There can be, but then I don't use. I have depicted the theatrist there and his son. So it is a Catholic. I don't write because I want to write about Catholics. Because the content or because the story demands these characters, they enter there. Anyway, thank you, Savia. I'm so happy to be listening to you. You know, you say mutual respect that we have. But then I was very impressed by the detailing that I find. And recently there was a film director who had contacted me. He wanted to know more about Goan lifestyle and particularly South Goa. When he was referring to some of my stories, I told him go to Penguin and ask for a Pinta. And he will definitely, yes, no, he didn't get it. So I gave my extra copy which I had, I gave it to him. He has gone back with that. So I admire you for that. And it's unfortunate that Goans don't prefer to write in Konkani. You know, the Goans, it's not very difficult. If Victor Ranjan Ribeiro can read it after 40 years, making an effort to read it in Devanagari, why not others? Do you know when Dr. Jose Pereira went to see him and he gave him this Carmelian, and he praised it, I think. But then he made it an effort, rather it made it a point to revive his knowledge of Devanagari and read entire Carmelian in Devanagari. That zeal, if is there, it's not difficult. Xavier Kota is my friend. He did not know Devanagari. He made an effort. And what about Jose? Jose came in contact with Konkani writers and writings only when Konkani music festival was held. And he was impressed and he made it a point to learn to read and write. And he is writing beautiful Konkani stories in Devanagari script. So it is not very difficult. But genuine efforts should be there. And I would be more happy, of course. I have nothing, no grudge about it, but then I will be definitely more happy if my fellow writers read my writings in Konkani. Okay.
Thank you so much, Bhai, for expressing your views and also raising some significant issues. And I hope soon we can discuss more of Konkani literature even in the book club. So we have another 5 minutes with us. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we can wrap up the session. Do we have any more questions? Can we end the session? Yes, Rahul, please go ahead.
Yeah, Bhai, I had a curious question really. How easy is it going to be to get Carmelian into Konkani again? I mean, what are the roadblocks? You know, why are publishers not enthusiastic to print it in Konkani?
You see, now I'll come to the question. It is translated into English. It is in the fifth, I don't call it a fifth edition, but it's a fifth print it is in. And I think each edition is of 2,000 books. Sahitya Akademi publication. And you know, Sahitya Akademi does not showcase the books properly. Even then, it is in the fifth print. Marathi novel has gone into second publication. And now Konkani, Mr. Kelekar was the publisher, owner of Zag. He was haphazard because he said the first edition, which was of 1,100 copies, took about more than nearly 10 years to finish. So no publisher can afford it. But then recently there are some publishers who approached me asking for permission to republish it, reprint it. I don't think there should be any objection to it. Let's see. But it's true, it's very difficult. The publishing scenario is not very pleasant that way. Not only for Konkani, for most of the regional languages. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhai. Any more questions? We just have 3 more minutes to go before the video pauses again. With everyone's permission, I consider that there are no more.
Shall I? Yeah, somebody mentioned about the book reading like a film, right? So what I remember, there was one filmmaker who had come to me asking for permission. So I told him, you write the screenplay and show it to me, then I will give you permission. Because I was little apprehensive about them changing the contents. He said, why should I write it? Your novel reads as a screenplay. So that is probably, that is the reason why when you read it, you visualize things. I don't know. Just wanted to share this with you. Thank you everybody.
I totally agree with that, and I hope someday there is a film made on Carmelin so that it goes wider globally as well. So thank you everyone for expressing your views. I think it was a wonderful discussion in spite of so many pauses in between and the glitches in between. Wonderful insights, everyone. We've discussed a book which, as a lot of you have said, is a classic in Konkani, and a book that has opened a new, that opened at some point of time a new perspective about women and exploitation. Not just that, but also diaspora experiences. So thank you, Bhai, for being with us, Dev Barakuru, and for sharing your experiences. Yeah, from including the state of the novel, from where it began and the whole journey and the problems and a lot of issues related to publishing as well. So thank you one and all, and let us hope we meet soon next time. And
thank you for wonderful, for moderating very wonderfully. Thank you.